Animals fascinate us. We love the way they behave and often laugh at their antics. Their behavior can make us feel happy, sad, and even frightened. But can they feel emotions too? Do they experience love, fear, sadness, and anger? Until recently, scientists were ill-equipped to study emotions in animals. With advances in neuroscience, they are now able to enter the inner life of the animal kingdom. For centuries, humans regarded animals as unthinking, unfeeling lower orders of life on Earth. Animals were little more than living robots, ruled by base instincts and hormones. Ancient philosophers believed animals responded like biological machines to their environment. Little separated them from inanimate objects like a table or chair. They were emotionally empty, incapable of the simplest feeling. Human prejudice hardened into dogma. This suited scientists because they feared being accused of the sin of anthropomorphism, applying human characteristics to animals. So humans were considered the only sentient beings on Earth. Animals, the argument went, rode purely on instinct. In the past, a scientist would explain away this chase in dogmatic terms. Zebras are aroused by a specific stimulus which gives rise to flight behavior. Today, scientists reject such language. They take a more generous view of the animal world. Science has opened up the very real possibility that the zebra's flight is motivated by fear, an emotion that enables them to escape danger. Not only are animals endowed with emotions, but these emotions play a vital role in their survival. So what exactly are emotions? Unlike feelings, they're physical and come not from the heart, but the brain. Emotions are neural impulses. Like an engine, they power the organism. Modern scientists believe emotions actually control animals, helping them to bond so the young stay close to their mothers for protection and adults stay clear of danger. Fear is the one emotion most readily experienced by animals. Even emotional skeptics pay lip service to its evolutionary advantages. Fear commonly triggers defensive behavior, avoiding a threat rather than confronting it. Without fear, the wildebeest might stand idly by as a lion chews its leg. Fear is genetically ingrained. It's a function of the nervous system, and it provokes two types of behavior: fight or flight. The body language of fear is easily recognized in humans, but also in animals. Dr. Joseph Ledoux, a neuroscientist at New York University, has spent the past 15 years looking at rats to see what happens inside their brains when they're afraid.
The reason fear is so easy to study and been so productive as a topic for research is that we have very good methods for eliciting fear and measuring fear. So if you have a stimulus and you have a response, it's very easy to follow the stimulus through the brain and get to the response.
Witness emotion in action. Emotions like fear produce chemical and physiological reactions that come hardwired in the body. When the wood rat detects a predator, its heart beats faster and hormones flood the body. The control room for all this physical activity lies deep inside the brain. A tiny almond-shaped area called the amygdala receives danger signals and trips physical reactions around the body. When the danger passes, fear subsides. Normal behavior resumes. All mammals and birds follow the same emergency drill. Dr. Bernd Heinrich is a world expert on ravens, the largest member of the crow family. He works with these highly intelligent birds both in the wild and in captivity, and was at first surprised by the emotional reaction they showed to their favorite food, carrion.
When I looked at the adult ones in the field where I started, I put out calf carcasses, and it sometimes took days before they'd go down. They'd be so afraid of them, they wouldn't go near them unless they were in the crowd sometime, or unless somebody else was there first, and they wouldn't go near him. So I couldn't imagine how he had a carcass specialist being afraid of carcasses. I thought they were just the opposite.
This wasn't an isolated case of food phobia. Dr. Heinrich has been feeding this pair in the same place for some time, and yet the ravens are still wary. This jumping jack behavior is an obvious sign of fear. Imagine a rabbit being afraid of carrots. Ravens exhibit the same seemingly irrational response to their favorite meal. If they were always so terrified of eating, they would surely starve to death. The problem with these birds is they're neophobic. They're afraid of new things. Anything unfamiliar causes them to panic. The birds patiently evaluate anything they haven't seen before until they overcome their fear and seize the day. Dr. Heinrich also raises young ravens in an aviary. They show no such worries. They go for anything. The young ravens even compete for new objects until their curiosity is satisfied. Scientists have added curiosity or interest to the range of emotions they think animals are capable of. Though poorly understood, curiosity probably encourages exploration, attention, and learning in young animals more than older ones.
Curiosity, by definition, is looking at new things and trying to find out about them. If you define curiosity of examining new things, then ravens are very curious, especially when they're starting out after they come out of the nest, and they manipulate different objects. And it's a way of, functionally, it's a way of testing what the objects are, whether or not they're good to eat, actually. And I've done experiments with that, and they are very eager to examine things that they're unfamiliar with, that they have not contacted before. And after a while, they will totally ignore things that they were very familiar with.
Curiosity might kill a cat, but young ravens thrive on it. It drives the search for food, helps them understand what might harm them, and avoid things of little interest. In a sense, curiosity is the opposite of fear, but it doesn't last forever. As the birds grow up, their curiosity wanes. Dr. Heinrich experiments with young and older birds. Here he films young tame birds to gauge their reaction to a wind-up mouse. By the time they're 4 months old, the ravens already show signs of shyness. As they grow into adulthood, the birds become completely neophobic. Their emotional makeup changes radically with age. Youthful curiosity encourages exploration and learning. Later, fear will help them avoid potential threats. Dr. Mark Beckhoff, a biologist at the University of Colorado, likes to see the positive side of a negative emotion.
I don't ask the question if emotions have evolved. I ask why, what they're good for, what function. So I think the point is really to help develop bonds and attraction or repulsion between individuals. I mean, I love trees and I love rocks, but I don't love them the same way I love a dog or a cat or a wolf. And I think it's because we don't have the shared emotions. So I think it's the sharing of these emotional states that's very important in the bonding and the keeping, to keep a group functional. Not only the positive emotions, if you will, but the negative ones of pain and fear and, say, anger.
Emotion is a power that binds animals, just like people, together. Packs of wolves live in relative peace because emotions rule their society. Every member knows its place. Rules are enforced through dominance and subordination. Without fear and aggression, large social groups in the animal kingdom would break up.
At the river mouth, the bears catch only the tastiest, most tender salmon, which is exactly what we want.
Humans often find themselves in conflict with nature. Animals too get angry, and not always over food. Social mammals like the olive baboons in Kenya's Masai Mara National Reserve often resolve conflicts peacefully. A glance here, a gesture there. The male urge to dominate includes threat and counter-threat. This can quickly escalate into violent, sometimes bloody aggression. Aggression is the outward manifestation of anger. What goes on inside the body is much the same as when animals feel fear.
So whenever we're in a dangerous situation, there's a stereotype response in the body. You know, sometimes you call it a stress response, defense response, fear response. It's all the same thing. So muscles tense up, blood pressure and heart rate tend to rise, hormones are released. The neural responses in the brain and body are fast, hormones are slow. And while slow is a disadvantage, what they do is they keep you locked into the emotion for a longer period. So they're slow, but they continue, and that's a good thing.
Like fear, anger lurks in the amygdala part of the brain, which triggers the body's fight or flight response. Heart rate and blood pressure rise. So does respiration and body temperature. Blood rushes to the muscles and other vital organs to prepare for action. It also flows away from the skin to reduce bleeding in the case of injury. The body is flooded with stress hormones, adrenaline and cortisol. This puts animals in a heightened state of alert. Anger and aggression in nature evolved for a reason. An aggressive animal wins more food. It also increases its chances of mating and protecting offspring over a wide territory, all of which spells survival. If it pays to be aggressive, costs must also be borne. A mean set of canines makes fighting extremely dangerous. Most adult males bear scars. But too much aggression would create intolerable levels of stress and might tear a baboon society apart. If anger and aggression help build territories and social hierarchies, they must be kept under control. An antidote is at hand: appeasement. Many primates turn to grooming to restore peace and tranquility. A gentle hand cements social contact. It's an emotional moment for such animals, and it's driven by endorphins released in the body. Endorphins are a particular type of amino acid called peptides. They're produced in the pituitary gland and the hypothalamus of the brain. They act like opiates, creating a sense of well-being and a mild high in animals, and could also serve as a painkiller after a fight. If domestic cats purr with contentment, lions hum softly when they play, lick, or rest. Unseen, endorphins work their magic to strengthen social bonds and keep the peace. Our wild relatives may seem innocent enough, but there's more going on in their minds than meets the eye. Arnhem Zoo in the Netherlands is paradise for primatologists studying chimpanzees in a controlled yet natural environment. Supper time is anything but calm. The promise of a meal causes great excitement as the screaming and body language show. Dr. Frans de Waal, one of the founders of the zoo, puts their behavior into context.
Chimpanzees, when you introduce food, they go through what I call a celebration. So when you arrive with the food in captivity, all the chimpanzees will come together, they will be hooting, they will embrace each other, and sometimes they groom each other if they have to wait a longer time. And then when the food comes, they share the food. And I always think that these celebrations have to do with partly with excitement, but also with the reduction of aggression.
As aggression drops, the chimp's sexual appetite increases. In chimp society, food and sex are closely related. They go hand in hand. The more food there is available, the more there is casual sex. But food provokes other less attractive emotions like envy. So strict rules need to be observed if the group is to remain peaceful.
Once the subordinate has put her hand or his hand on the food and has the food, it will not be taken by the dominant. The dominant will respect the ownership. If the other one is an adult, if the other one is juvenile, then there's no respect for that. So yes, there is what used to be called in primatology respect of possession. Once you possess it, others will have to beg. And so even the highest ranking male will have to beg for his food if it's in the hands of a low ranking female.
Chimps can look, but not touch. If patience is little more than a virtue, how about dropping a heavy hint? The young find it difficult to sit idly by. Young tempers flare when adults don't want to share. Some chimps try more subtle approaches. Lending a hand sometimes results in favors, but not always. At the end of the day, chimpanzees are highly social, so they do like to share. They seem to know the value of give and take.
I think for chimpanzees, food sharing is a way of fostering relationships. And so I think a lot of the food sharing has to do with reciprocity, has to do with repaying favors, either from previous food sharing, or from grooming, or from support in fights, or for sex, or whatever it is. There's all sorts of reasons in a chimpanzee society to make friends and to keep friends, and I think food sharing plays a role in that.
Share a meal, keep a friend. Chimps use food to make friends and gain influence. Animals of the same species often cooperate to survive. Cooperation between species is rare. Nature is essentially selfish. While humans and chimpanzees are restrained by social codes, most animals have no scruples about doing whatever is necessary to survive. Animals live by their wits in a complex world where intelligence and cunning are often the key to survival. Envy, desire, and greed are powerful emotions that compel animals to act to get what they want, even if that means provoking anger and disappointment in others. In human society, greed is one of the 7 deadly sins, something shameful which is best controlled. Scientists at the Primate Research Center in Strasbourg are studying whether animals can control their desires. A capuchin monkey faces a choice. It's offered the orange, but like many primates, it would prefer the banana. The choice is this: if it waits 10 seconds and returns the orange, the banana will be his. Wise decision. For humans, the certainty of a quick swap would be enough to pass up the orange. Monkeys find self-control far more difficult. Most, not all, will control themselves for the 10 seconds. After that, they cave in. The truth is that in the wild, monkeys make no provisions for the future. All available food is eaten immediately. Greed is far from being a sin in the wild. It allows animals to take full advantage of available resources. Human etiquette, like politeness, which make our world tick, would doom animals to extinction. Emotions like greed rule the jungle. Then comes love. They say that love is blind, which is just as well for some animals. Love may be the most uplifting of all emotional states. But let's not beat about the bush. It's actually just nature's way of keeping the species alive and kicking. Love comes in 3 flavors: lust, attraction, and attachment. Lust initiates the process of mating, and any partner will do. It's the driving force behind reproduction. Attraction allows individuals to choose a specific partner. Rather than coveting everything that moves, finding the perfect partner conserves energy and time for more mating. A genuine attachment between the sexes provides the icing on the cake. Attachment allows individual animals to cooperate with a mate until parental duties are over. If love is in the air, so too are feelings of intense desire and attraction. That feeling of wanting to be near someone all the time. Of seeing only the good side and of looking beyond mere appearances to the inner beauty of your partner. Over the past 20 years, scientists have shown that love really is a drug. It's literally all in the mind. Neural chemicals create a cocktail of potions for every kind of love, from lust to romance and long-term commitment. But don't expect an elephant seal to feel that love is forever. They want to copulate all right, but after a short post-coital cuddle, they'll go their separate ways. The sight of a potential mate tells the limbic system in the brain to dispatch chemical messages to the reproductive organs. Sex hormones kick in, testosterone and estrogen course through the body, and mating begins. More durable love comes in the form of a bond between parents and offspring. This kind of love is associated with the drug oxytocin produced by the pituitary gland in the brain. When mammals go into labor, the fetus stimulates the birth canal and releases oxytocin into its mother's nervous system. The oxytocin present at birth allows mother to bond with baby. It stimulates milk production and nursing. Every time baby sucks, more of the drug is produced, which reinforces the bond. Typically, for most mammals, the father of the pup plays little or no role in parenting. His job is done after copulation. Only a tiny number of mammals form lasting partnerships in the natural world. Birds are different. 90% of birds form monogamous relationships, and albatrosses are no exception. They descend from the Pacific skies to land on Midway Island near Hawaii every year around November. Hundreds of thousands of them. So what's all the song and dance about? An albatross lives most of its life at sea. They land here to pair off and breed. They depend on long-term, even lifelong attachments to produce offspring. For a female, finding Mr. Right is a big decision. Personal hygiene is a plus, but it's not everything. The chemistry has to be right. In the early stages of the breeding season, the reproductive hormone, testosterone, is in overdrive. Scientists believe testosterone promotes courtship in birds generally. But don't expect love at first sight. A female albatross takes her time to choose a mate who will help bring up her chick, because she won't lay another egg for 2 years. It will be vital for the chick to have 2 parents. The male must have good genes and be attentive to the offspring. When the female finally lays her egg, the male will spend much of the next 2 months incubating it. It's at this stage that scientists believe another hormone kicks in to cement the partnership. As the level of testosterone in males drops, it's replaced by prolactin, a hormone that triggers parenting behavior. A high level of prolactin in both male and female is present throughout the incubation period. But the real test of enduring love has yet to come. The chick will depend on both parents equally to ensure its survival. For the next 7 or 8 months, mother and father will take turns nursing and feeding. Lower levels of testosterone at this stage mean the male is less interested in other females. The hungry chick taps on its parent's beak to feed. If parental devotion were measured in miles, the albatross would win feet down. It will fly up to 4,000 miles over several days to find food. Little surprise then that a happy chick is one with 2 loving parents on a good dose of prolactin. Love protects the young. Compassion protects the weak on land and at sea. Carnivores must kill to live. Some scavengers don't wait for death to tuck in. It's all part of the cruel cycle of the natural world which animals live and die by. But sometimes they challenge their fate. adult penguins come to the rescue of one of their own. Are they aware of the danger and distress? It would seem so. Out of compassion or curiosity, the ailing bird quickly finds itself surrounded by family. It's impossible to know what they're thinking or feeling. But their behavior speaks for itself. They won't leave the bird alone. Perhaps they do know that if they leave, other predators will finish it off. The victim appears to give up. The others don't. If this is not compassion, then perhaps animals can't be aware of the effect their actions have on others. Can they really know how their fellows feel? To know how others feel, you must first be aware of yourself. An animal may know something, but does it know that it knows? Is it self-conscious? The ability to think about oneself creates self-awareness. A mirror demonstrates the challenge for animals. Even monkeys cannot recognize themselves. Only our closest relative in the wild, chimpanzees and orangutans, demonstrate any evidence that they do see themselves reflected. So if most animals do not possess self-awareness, are they capable of understanding another's feelings? Empathy can sometimes cause an upwelling of emotions, but not all animals are capable of such feelings. For centuries, we underestimated animals. Today, we may be guilty of wishful thinking, mistakenly giving them qualities that only we have, the old sin of anthropomorphism. In India, the Hindus revere millions of long-tailed monkeys called langurs. They're the incarnation of the god Hanuman. When one dies, it's given an elaborate funeral, adorned with garlands and sprinkled with ochre. By contrast, a langur's reaction to its own dead is at best ambiguous. A mother gives birth to a stillborn baby. She looks more puzzled than grieving. It's too easy to assume the mother feels deeply for her loss and impossible to share her thoughts. Is she even aware that her child is dead? Even scientists can't answer that with any certainty. After all, the mother might think the baby is just behaving a little strangely. Others in the troop seem to understand that all is not well. Are they sad because we would be in a similar situation? Many scientists assert that humans really are alone in possessing self-awareness. One way of realizing this is in our own reaction to death. We live in the knowledge that one day we will die. Animals seem to live in blissful ignorance. While we perform elaborate funeral rites for our dead, some animals also appear to understand death. Many scientists are convinced that elephants are intimately ruled by their emotions. They're one of the rare animals for whom death means something. They show visible signs of grief. When an elephant gives birth to a premature baby, the mother and relatives show genuine distress. Unlike langurs, they seem to realize that the baby teeters between life and death. The family tries to drag and lift the baby to a shady area out of the burning sun. But their efforts are in vain. They'll spend the next 3 days watching over its lifeless body.
There's no doubt that elephants, for example, grieve and bereave, if you will, over the dead carcass of another elephant. I don't think in order to grieve that they need to know that the animal's not coming back. I don't think they need to know about the concept of death as we know about the concept of death, because in fact in humans there's a variation in the concept of death. Some people believe in reincarnation, so death is just a transitional stage. So I don't think it has to mean permanently gone, but I do think that elephants are very aware, as are chimpanzees and dogs, when another individual is gone.
If we turn our backs on animals' emotions, we could find ourselves faced with a whole host of complications. Awareness in domestic animals can be a problem for pets and their owners. Dr. Nicholas Dodman at Tufts Animal Hospital in Massachusetts tries to help both parties.
We can talk to you about that might help him in a thunderstorm. Medicines can help on their own, but the best is to put both.
As a veterinary surgeon and pet psychologist of sorts, Dr. Dodman's clients come from hundreds of miles to consult him about their problematic pets.
It starts.
Including Hazel. Her owner, Laura, is definitely the dog's best friend. But their close relationship has turned out to be a problem because Laura is unable to leave her alone. When she does, Hazel goes from docile to demented. Having destroyed her house and her car, Laura is obliged to keep Hazel in a kennel when she goes out.
When I leave, as soon as she figures I'm gone, she panics. I do leave her for about an hour at a time in the kennel, but I feel bad the entire time. And I've read every book, I've done research on the internet, I've done all different kinds of things, and nothing works.
Dr. Dodman is positive animals get emotional in the full sense of the term. He diagnoses Hazel as suffering from separation anxiety, a neurological condition brought on when Laura leaves even for a moment.
And that is, the bond between you is so intense that parting becomes sorrow. And, that's not good. So it is a form of depression. I mean, when you leave, I believe she thinks that you've gone forever, that she's alone again.
That's what we keep saying, is she's so smart.
He prescribes a course of behavior modification and drugs to treat animals like this who have become too attached, what he calls a Velcro dog.
I know, but it can become fun.
Common symptoms of separation anxiety include howling and barking destructive behavior, excessive salivation, even anorexia.
But whatever.
Studies point to a link between anxiety disorders and specific areas of the brain. Drugs can have an effect. Serotonin reuptake inhibitors, a type of antidepressant, work by retaining the level of serotonin in the brain. Serotonin is known to reduce levels of fear and anxiety.
Something now for the occasional times, and this would be, on an as-needed basis.
Dr. Dodman uses this type of antidepressants on his canine clients. Neurological studies have confirmed what many of us always suspected. Animals do have emotions.
C'est ça.
People always think they can read their pet's mind. Body language speaks volumes. Fear, aggression, greed, curiosity, and of course love are all part of the emotional range animals may well feel. In the wild, animals too are full of emotional expressions. Emotions play a vital role in survival. Scientists have finally dared peer right inside the natural world to think the unthinkable. Animals have emotions just like us.
Ambition, competition, coalition, domination. These are the weapons of the political animal. Such is the human race, wrote Mark Twain. Often it does seem such a pity that Noah didn't miss the boat. If politics is the art of the possible, what does it really take to reach the top in the animal kingdom? Animals, like humans, have learned to live together for millions of years. Our political odyssey around the globe will meet the warring tribes, cruel despots, and democrats that make up the animal world. Well before humans developed the political skills of a Hitler, Gandhi, or Kennedy, animals evolved an array of strategies to make their communities work and impose their will on others. So is man that much cleverer or cunning than a monkey, bird, or insect? And can we find in their world a perfect political system? Power tends to corrupt. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. This was the British historian Lord Acton's epic warning in the second half of the 19th century, so vividly conveyed by Charlie Chaplin in his numerous political satires. Since time immemorial, political tyranny has led to war and slavery. In the animal world, slavery is a most effective political weapon.
Well, it's pretty quiet right here, in this dry forest, but about 2 hours from now, this is going to be the site of a battle royal.
Slavery remains a hidden scourge in some parts of the world, even though formal human emancipation occurred well over a century ago. It didn't extend to the insect world. Howard Topoff of the Museum of Natural History in Arizona has been a keen observer of slave-making ants for 20 years.
This is a staging area for warfare between two groups of ants. The ants in this nest are going to attack a species 100 yards away, steal their young, bring them home, and turn them into slaves.
Nations, empires were built on the backs of slaves. For polyergus ants, slavery is a matter of survival. They neither forage for food, look after their young or queens, nor clean their nests. Their method is chillingly simple: enslave other species to do the work for them. The ancient Greek philosopher Aristotle justified slavery as long as the interests of master and slave were the same. Is this what he had in mind? Two prototypes seemingly made for each other. A polyergus raid is on. Cry havoc and let slip the dogs of war. Even Shakespeare could not have imagined the next act. The polyergus ants use chemical weapons to overpower their enemies, in this case, Formica ants. The defenders panic. Some try in vain to rescue their queen, others to protect the cocoons. But it's already too late. A polyergus queen, ready to lay eggs, joins the attack. Her goal, to seize power unconditionally in the enemy nest. And here's the cruelest part. The polyergus are not just out to enslave their enemy, but equally their enemy's offspring, dragging Formica cocoons back to their nest. Ants born into slavery.
So when a polyergus queen gets into a Formica nest, first thing she has to do is find that Formica queen and kill her. But interestingly, when we have observations in the laboratory on this killing process, we found that not only is the polyergus queen killing the Formica queen, but she's licking her all over, her head, her thorax, her abdomen. She licks her for maybe 20 minutes. And only after this licking process do the workers of Formica adopt the polyergus queen as their own. So we thought that perhaps what's happening in this here is that the polyergus queen is getting the chemicals, the pheromones from the Formica queen.
Laboratory tests confirm Howard Topoff's hunch. He and his team drew up chemical profiles of both queens, polyergus and Formica. Before the raid, they looked quite different, each with their own distinct chemical identity. But after killing the Formica queen, the polyergus begins to change. Her chemical ID becomes a dead ringer of the assassinated Formica queen, a perfect disguise to dupe the unsuspecting Formica workers in their very own nest. This could be a blessing in disguise for the Formica ants. Ignorance is surely bliss when a foreign queen tricks you into slavery. The slave's first job is to tend to their new queen's eggs. The eggs will hatch into their future taskmasters. When they're fully grown, they'll raid more Formica nests to keep slave numbers healthily high. Slavery has far from disappeared beneath the earth. Slavery and fascism are the ugly faces of ancient and modern politics. But instead of one powerful dictator, some societies buckle under coalitions of hard, like-minded troopers. The kingdom of the Hamadryas begins in the deserts of the Arabian Peninsula. Here, these male desert baboons are true troopers to the cause. With each adult male retaining exclusive rights over a harem of females, only negotiation can keep the peace in this macho society. Power rests in the hands of the few in Hamadryas society, and exclusively in the hands of the male. Like in many human societies, these desert baboons on the Arabian Peninsula believe a woman's place is in the home. In ancient Greece, Aristotle opined, women are without authority, less capable than men of leadership, so they should be excluded from the affairs of state. Here, a single male leader dominates a group of females, exercising exclusive rights over his harem. Females endure constant surveillance. Their movements are severely restricted. If a female strays too far, the male leader intervenes promptly. Anything goes to remind the fairer and weaker sex of her place. Intimidation and brute force are meted out without ceremony. A bite on the neck. A tug of the tail. All's fair in love and war. When a female is on heat, the noose tightens even further. This female is kept on a very short leash. Her only option is to court favor with the male and submit to the unwavering laws of the harem. Social hierarchy dictates the female with the highest status stays closest to her master. If she's unhappy with her lot, she runs the risk of being stolen by another male. When a female does fly the coop, she's fair game for frustrated suitors. The stakes are high. Everyone is watching. Claiming a loose female and forming your own harem can only enhance male social status. And status is always up for grabs, no matter how brutish the behavior. But as the ancient Chinese philosopher Confucius cautioned, when anger arises, think of the consequences. Even in this macho environment, patience is a virtue. A passive bystander can seize his chance while the others fight it out. On the face of it, baboons seem to have a one-track mind, building and preserving their harems with brawn, not brain. Scientific surveys now cast Hamadryas society in a more generous light. A young single baboon can integrate peacefully into a harem, biding his time patiently before forming his own and acquiring the status of leader. A successful young pretender builds up trust with the dominant male and his females before acceding to the ultimate prize. Sexual impulse is a double-edged sword. It foments conflict, but also instills harmony. Despite their fierce canine teeth and muscular build, desert baboons use a network of male alliances to keep the peace. Clans of 2 or more harems band together. These bands, in turn, form troops. Cooperation and negotiation are the building blocks of the Hamadryas political order. And well before Machiavelli told the Prince of Italy how to keep political power, baboons were well versed in one of his cardinal principles: never plunder another's property or take his woman by force. In spite of stiff competition, the rule is generally respected. Troops march to the same tune. Discreet signals ensure rules are crystal clear. A reassuring pat on the back. Everyone knows where they stand. Peace abroad means peace inside the harem. Their harems may function in much the same way as polite human society, where the occasional burst of aggressive behavior between males is tempered by respect for the property of others, in this case, female desert baboons. A world away from the repressive desert harems are the permissive playgrounds of the African jungle. The veil has no place in this society. Female bonobo chimps in the Democratic Republic of Congo offer themselves up as sexual favors to any interested male. Bonobos of all ages enjoy free love. This must be male paradise. There's no catch. Wait a minute, she wants a snack. And so does she. It's all part of a deal. This is the deal. Unlike the possessive baboons of the Arabian Peninsula, male bonobos do not covet females as sexual trophies to be guarded at all times. Sex is traded freely for food and to avert conflict. It's a political language that fosters social harmony in heterosexual, homosexual, and incestuous combinations. Like humans, they even do it facing each other. Bonobos make love, not war, in an egalitarian, free society, much like the hippie movement of the 1960s. Sex is not just about reproduction. It's about appeasement, harmony, and free trade. Fancy emigrating?
Soldiers, in the name of democracy, let us all unite!
Winston Churchill once joked, "It has been said that democracy is the worst form of government, except all those other forms that have been tried from time to time." But is democracy purely man-made, or does it resonate elsewhere in the natural world? Known as the Forbidden Island because it was once privately owned by a wealthy English family, the island of Rum off the west coast of Scotland is an unlikely setting for popular politics. Local people were cleared long ago to make way for sheep and deer. And it's the 350 red deer, all collared and marked for scientific observation, that beat the democratic drum. Every day they descend the mountain to graze in the valley, then settle to digest and rest. Shy, retiring animals, these deer hardly seem ready to vote with their feet. So what moves them? Not much, to the frustration of the cameras. Is it motherly love? And who rules them? A single leader? Obviously not him. The cameras keep rolling, patiently. Very patiently. At last, a second deer stands to be counted, then a third and a fourth. We seem to have a majority, but in favour of what? One by one, the deer stand, stretch and nibble without the slightest indication that anything else is afoot. Or is it? After 15 minutes, they do seem unanimously agreed on something. Simply to move on, together. That's democracy. On the Isle of Rum. The deer seem happy to quietly chew the cud, but their outwardly submissive nature belies a strong democratic streak. Power politics have no place on this remote Scottish island.
Now he pauses before a woman with a child.
Camera.
Power politics work best when the public is easily swayed,
All smiles at His Excellency's attention.
easily manipulated. The successful power politician must be as cunning as a rat. This is the dark side of politics. It's an underworld of stealth, deceit, and fear, where politicians keep their cards close to their chest, hugging the margins of public life, to avoid transparency. Nocturnal animals do the same. Rats are opportunists of the first order. Feared and detested for spreading disease, their intelligence and pervasiveness also make us uneasy. Where there are people, there are rats. And they're always one step ahead of the game. At the slightest threat, rats emit ultrasonic signals to warn their own. The Three Musketeers are off. If you can't stand the catwalk, try the sewers. In the event, this time-honored lifeline proves a mixed blessing for the Musketeers. They feel like, well, cornered rats, because this is foreign territory, and with old whiskers on their tail, who knows what else lies ahead. Thank God, they're one of us. But beware, friends not equal to yourself. Confucius is back with a timely reminder. This colony of sewer rats could offer the Musketeers a bed for the night, but would that be a popular move? The dominant male must make a decision. Resources are scarce. The intruders might stay. The people clamour for protection. Negotiations are out of the question. But a combination of gentle persuasion and intimidation will go a long way. The people expect. One by one, the Musketeers swallow their pride. Out they go to face another day. Old Spoilsport is tickled pink. Mission accomplished. The dominant male reinforced his position in the colony by seeing off an external threat. An unexpected flood puts the rats under renewed pressure, and at the drop of a hat, or a carton of chips, a social structure emerges. The presence of food will test the rat's political mettle. When the chips are down and the stakes so high, manipulation, cunning, and courage are called for. He who hesitates is lost. This takes courage because political necessities sometimes turn out to be political mistakes. Is it not more cunning to wait and reap the fruits of someone else's labor? After all, domination is an art which Karl Marx called the peaceful enjoyment of the blood and sweat of others. But never be discouraged by the weakness of others, nor the difficulty of the task at hand. Courage and tenacity, peppered with selfishness, are the ingredients of success. A measly carton of chips brings out the best and worst in a small colony of sewer rats. 3 dominant personality traits would seem to emerge: the exploiter, the exploited, and the enterprising. Ring a bell? Our own politicians would blush at any comparison. The successful politician must unite his party to maintain power. There's strength in numbers. No place on our planet better underlines this lesson than the ocean depths. A family of jacks patrols the barrier reefs of the Atlantic. Most of the time, they live in sparse schools. But at the first sign of trouble, the jacks regroup. They must now move as one for their own protection. Any stragglers are dead in the water. But how do they do this? Jacks have a 6th sense. Special cells on their sides detect the vibrations of their neighbors. When one jack on the exposed outer flank swerves suddenly, the others synchronize instantly. The sharks struggle to press home the attack. But the jacks can't hold out forever. The phalanx tightens, not for defense, but for attack. Predator turns protector in this ingenious strategy to use the enemy as a shield. The lesson is clear: rally and move as one to advance the common good. But where in nature do animals abuse the common good? We're about to find out. A politician builds his integrity on image and reputation. He must act the part. Machiavelli told the Prince of Italy he did not have to be good, merely appear to be.
Please, please, gentlemen, no more pictures.
Birds of a particular feather in Australia appear to live happily together. The chough is a cooperative bird. It inhabits Australia's rich eucalyptus forests. During the reproductive season, they band together to build nests, incubate, and eventually feed and protect the chicks. Parental responsibility extends to the whole community. Every member plays a part. Even young chuffs must help keep the ration line moving in return for the protection of the group. This collective effort means birds can cover a wide area to find food in the knowledge that the nests are not left unattended. In fact, everyone is minding everyone else's back. Adults and young helpers take turns finding food on the forest floor and return to surrender the pickings. How selfless can you get? But there's a quid pro quo, a little give and take, you might say. This is where Machiavelli picks up the story again. For some, child-minding in return for group protection is not enough. After all, it's not exactly the sort of work you volunteer for. To all appearances, this is just another feeding session. One helper feeds, the other waits his turn or rests. Reassured the nest is in good hands, the first helper flies off to find more food. It's all about trust. Back at the nest, the second helper is alone and can do as he pleases. He seems to tease the chicks like an adolescent might an infant. But this is no game. It's a profitable political strategy. Down the hatch, his own hatch. Not to put too fine a point on it, he's pretty chuffed, because nobody will tell. Will they? And you wouldn't know his integrity as an active member of the group belies all the cunning and duplicity of Machiavelli himself, putting the individual ahead of the common good. Animal politics matures into a remarkably sophisticated art at the Arnhem Zoo in the Netherlands. Here, primatologist Frans de Waal peers through the window into the political life of chimpanzees.
The males among themselves have an enormous complex political life, and I've written about it. I've written a book, Chimpanzee Politics, which is about all the coalitions they form and the divide and rule strategies that they have. And so males work this out all among themselves in the chimpanzee society.
For the first time ever, captive chimpanzees live together in conditions as close as possible to those found in the wild. So for Arnhem Zoo, read reality TV. The idea is to study the chimp's social behaviour close up and occasionally throw a spanner in the works. A single dominant male rules in chimp communities. Other males compete for influence and challenge the leadership. Jambo has just ousted Jing as group leader. Body language confirms the situation is now stable. The group, for the time being, looks to Jambo to assure its safety, while Jing broods alone on his fate. The onus now falls on Jambo to strengthen his authority by inspiring confidence rather than fear. He must be a father figure, not a tyrant. The leader's stature depends on healthy social bonds. As long as he guarantees their security, they will guarantee his. Uneasy lies the head that wears the crown. Like humans, evolution blessed chimpanzees with logical thought. They can consider the future and calculate the odds, all good political tools. Watch a simple experiment and see how the chimp masters political trickery. Jambo may have restored harmony, but the group is only the sum of its parts. Individuals, like this female, have their own interests at heart. She knows where an orange has been hidden. If she's not careful, she'll be forced to share. In the words of the 19th century French statesman Prince de Talleyrand, a court is merely an assembly of noble and distinguished beggars. The trick is to wait for the right moment. Time to act. Patience and careful planning are rewarded. But there were 2 oranges. Another chimp is wise to it. He too considers all the angles, calculating the odds and assessing the stage before acting. Individuals put on their best behavior at the leader's table. Jambo feels compelled to flaunt his share because food is a perennial source of conflict and frustration. He wants to set a good example. A good leader is a servant to his people, and Jambo understands the importance of sharing. This can only enhance Jambo's stature in the group and build up credit for his future as leader. But old scores remain to be settled. The former dominant male, Jing, returns to square up with Jambo, and onlookers better make themselves scarce. Jambo must find a way to save face in front of the group and deal with Jing once and for all. At this point, the role of females in restoring peace to the group emerges. A female leads Jing towards Jambo. Jambo acknowledges the female, showing he's boss. He ends up paying her homage in the best way he knows. Sexual foreplay, not on your life. Political foreplay. The female has served as pretext for Jing to sneak up on Jambo without making uncomfortable eye contact. Calculating female mediation works wonders. Jambo, like every good leader, sets an example by smoothing over any remaining differences. Everyone hopes this is the last chapter in this very male feud. If female chimpanzees are skilled in managing conflict, often they become the butt of it. Jambo's desire is her command. Other males either put up or shut up. The leader enjoys a complete monopoly on any female in heat. Jambo's dalliances carry great political weight. His genes must come first. So how do you get a look in if you're not the boss? Any overt attempt at reproduction in front of the dominant male is asking for trouble. It was a brave effort, but none too subtle. For Zuli, secret rendezvous are the only answer. He assumes that what Jambo doesn't see, he won't know. But Jambo has cultivated allies, spies. Zuli has sown the seeds of more trouble. Joery sets out to betray Zuli. Jambo acts quickly. He must. An ill wind blows through the community. Zuli comes out of hiding and raises the stakes. He imposes himself on the group, pressing home the treachery in the hope of winning allies to confront Jambo. But Zuli's bravado fails to impress. It's a major miscalculation. And he knows it. Collective indifference to Zuli only adds salt to his wounds. He vents his frustration on the females, easy targets for him to show off his strength. The eldest female, Mama, bears the brunt of Zuli's rage. That only brings our young, impulsive chimp further into disrepute. Mama moves to Jambo's side, a poignantly symbolic gesture. In the end, Zuli's capitulation is so complete, Jambo's inaction speaks volumes. The last thing Jambo wants now is to reignite the conflict. Their stability is paramount. The moment of truth. Jambo hardly bats an eyebrow. If Zuli wants back in, that's up to him. Zuli's tough political rites of passage is complete. It's one which he won't easily forget. For Jambo, magnanimity and victory will keep them on his side, for now at least. A week is a long time in politics. So, what has Zuli learned? Where did he go so wrong? He failed to build allies, cultivate political bonds before making a bid for power. If Zuli learns these lessons, his day will surely come. As Margaret Thatcher is often quoted as saying, "You may have to fight a battle more than once to win it." Zuli should know. In an ideal world, politics isn't just about grabbing power. It's, as Aristotle said, a noble practice to keep citizens happy in the polis or city-state. The key to running this state? Organization. But is this the noble life Aristotle had in mind? Greek democracy considered all citizens equal. That's after excluding women, foreigners, and, of course, slaves. The Jura forests of Switzerland are home to one of the most organised and egalitarian societies on the planet. Where else would you find the complete submission of the individual to the good of the state than inside an anthill? Welcome back to the world of Formica ants. But here, they're no longer slaves of the Polyergus ant. In these forests, they live among themselves in peace. And over many miles in an intricate network of colonies that eclipse, in organisational terms, almost any other animal community on Earth. This is Arno Maeder, a biologist from the University of Lausanne. And he's itching to guide us through this underworld. Prepare to enter the super colony. For insects used to the cramped, claustrophobic confines of a nest, Formica ants, also known as wood ants, spread themselves surprisingly thin on the ground. 100 kilometers of pathways link one colony to another in this remote Swiss forest. Arno Maeder needs satellite technology to keep up. His GPS tracking system records where one nest lies in relation to another. It maps the super colony of one of the world's most organised and peaceful societies. It's taken years and a lot of trekking for biologists to see the big picture. So just what kind of a community does the wood ant inhabit? Like Switzerland, the super colony is a federal state, 1,200 nests scattered within the superstructure of the federation. Typically for these fussy insects, one nest differs from another, both in size and function. For obvious reasons, there are mother nests, then temporary seasonal nests for gathering provisions, and secondary nests, which run individual sectors. How many sectors? 60. How many nests to each sector? 25. Wood ants leave nothing to chance. They circulate, communicate, and trade over a vast area. Compared to the warring slave-making ants, this is utopia, and it's evolved over a long time. Ants have blanketed the Earth for over 100 million years. Their combined weight makes up 15% of our planet's biomass. But to understand this Swiss super colony, scientists threw the textbook out of the window.
In this society, there are 150 million ants, which is phenomenal. But even more amazing is that there are hundreds of thousands of queens who coexist in perfect harmony. There are no wars in the system, which we can compare to a sort of federation without a leader, completely self-organized and based on a politic of mutual help. And it never becomes anarchic.
No leader? Aristotle would turn in his grave. If we look carefully, what we're seeing is an apolitical society of ants, obsessively self-regulated, just like a machine. But who are we to put down the super ant when they're clearly so highly organised? Along highways and byways, they communicate incessantly. Touching and exchanging odours warn of sector needs or intrusions ahead. The information pipeline binds the super ants of the super colony together. Never tell a passing worker to mind his own business. He's a control freak and a workaholic. Attention all workers, food to Sector 12, food to Sector 12. In this feverish environment, a worker must literally pull far more than his own weight. Feeding tens of thousands of mouths in a single nest is a task of biblical proportions. Unusually, these wood ants adapt to any task at hand: hunting, foraging, building, anything to avoid lounging around. Plenty of workers die on the job. Others immediately replace them from a pool of reserves. The super colony is a one-party state that caters for present and future needs. If one sector falls short of workers, hard to believe, new blood must be found. There's no shortage of queens to lay eggs where they're most needed. This budding phenomena, queens pressed into service in a new nest, cuts right across the grain of most animal societies. Arno Maeder and his fellow biologists are asking themselves a lot of hard questions.
In this society, there's a real scientific paradox, which is related to the theory of parental selection. This theory means that individuals will help each other if they are related. But in an anthill, in a super colony, you can have as many as 1,500 queens, and therefore a huge genetic diversity, which means that these individuals should not normally cooperate. Obviously, we are now asking ourselves the reasons for this paradox in order to understand this stable social structure in this particular situation. And perhaps there's much more we can learn from them.
Freedom of movement is a basic political right in the Swiss super colony. These are dyed-in-the-wool federalists. Arno Maeder shows us how. Now sporting bright new shirts representing the nests they came from, Arno returns the ants where he found them, in different parts of the forest. They're soon back to work, freely interacting with each other no matter where they come from in the colony. Forget the coloured shirts, that's for our information. It's the odour of the other that counts. They all carry the same chemical signature. They belong to the same super colony, even if they inhabit different nests. The ants go as they please, still baffling scientists with the complexity and efficiency of their federal superstate. Has our political odyssey through the animal kingdom at last found the perfect society? Do these free Formica ants win your vote? Long before man first dabbled in politics, animals were steeped in the cruelty of slave labor, the sexual politics of the permissive society, Machiavellian self-interest, and much more. So look into your own community and find perhaps mixed comfort in the wisdom of Aristotle. Man is by nature a political animal.
Man always believed that what set him apart from animals was culture. What they knew was innate, what we knew was acquired. Nature versus culture. But scientists now realize that some animals are so inventive that their species must be blessed with cultures of their own. So are the origins of culture not to be found in the animal kingdom after all?
The monkey teacher is running a new kind of school in Munich. With the beginning of the new school year, pupils would be advised not to make fun of those who are aping them, with the excuse that they are in fact real monkeys.
How we love to laugh at animals behaving like us. A classroom full of chimpanzees appears so incongruous, a contradiction in terms. But would we laugh so much if we discovered that animals really are quite cultivated and that the chimps get the last laugh? For centuries, culture was the last barrier that separated man from animals. To be cultured meant to be human. But over the past 50 years, researchers observing a group of macaques in Japan shattered this notion. Every winter, the hot springs in the mountains around Nagano in central Japan attract some unlikely visitors. Here, the forest of Jikokudani literally means Hell's Valley, but it's the closest thing to heaven for these Japanese macaques. The artificial pools are extremely popular with other local species. The snow monkeys took their first dip in these artificial pools in the 1950s, and it changed their way of life forever. Several times a day, they relax, play, and groom themselves in the hot volcanic waters. Heat from the springs protects the monkeys from the cold and helps dry their coats quickly. Only Japanese and a group of Indonesian macaques behave this way. It's not genetically inherited behavior, but something they learned during the course of their lives. For Frans de Waal, one of the world's leading primatologists, this is a defining cultural moment for both animal and man.
We speak of culture when groups of animals in similar environments of the same species behave differently. And they behave differently as a result of social learning, of learning from each other.
If animals can now be said to be cultivated, they owe their hard-earned culture to Japanese macaques. The first human observations of animal culture took place around the same time, not in Nagano, but on the tiny island of Koshima, off the southeastern coast of Japan. A group of researchers placed sweet potatoes in the sand, and soon macaques began washing them in the sea before eating them. A young female called Imo started the whole thing. Others in her group soon followed. So the monkeys obviously preferred clean potatoes with a pinch of salt to sandy ones. But as Frans de Waal explains, their behavior set in motion the whole concept of animal culture in primatology.
And I think it's very interesting that the idea came from Japan and not from the West, because in the West we have a habit of putting a big wall between humans and animals, and culture became part of that wall. The anthropologists would say culture is what makes us human, meaning that obviously then animals cannot have culture. And in the East, the borderline between human and animal is not as clear.
The culinary discoveries of the macaques on Koshima raised serious doubts about the time-honored prejudice that animal behavior was merely the product of genetic inheritance. Other evidence soon weighed into the debate. In a valley beyond the potato washers, another troop of macaques displays a different sort of talent. The macaques of Arashiyama enjoy rubbing stones together. Seen for the first time in a female only 27 years ago, and again the activity is copied by other members of the troop. Today, nearly all the monkeys in this forest play the same game, adults and young alike. So what do they get out of it? It seems little or nothing in the short term, but scientists now believe that over the long run, there may be important benefits for both the young and aged, something like training or mental exercise to keep the brain active. Culture does not necessarily imply some kind of immediate reward as long as it's fun. Maybe they just enjoy the sound of the stones. More rock and roll than we imagined. When we think animal culture, we shouldn't paint an image of our own artistic sense. We could be tempted to imagine music-loving monkeys or budding Picassos of the jungle, but that's looking at animal culture through our eyes and not theirs. The natural world is full of examples of culture in animals, and where better to go next than Africa? Chimpanzees are among the most evolved of all primates. They're our closest cousins in the wild, and the more scientists study their behavior, the more the truth about them sinks in. They champion animal culture like no other creature on Earth. Some groups observe dozens of different traditions. Take their hunting techniques in the Mahale National Park in Tanzania. The chimps here eat meat, and their favorite prey is the red colobus monkey that chooses to live high in the canopy for protection. To catch one, the chimps must join forces. Strategies and tactics vary depending on how thick the forest is. In Mahale, trees aren't particularly high, and the low density of the woodlands limits the possible escape routes for the prey. So it may take only a single chimp to climb after the colobus, while the others follow below on the ground. In Tai National Park, chimpanzees as a rule hunt in groups, and in most cases collaborate while hunting because the canopy level is up to 200 feet, and colobus have more time to avoid the approaching chimpanzees. When the hunt is over, the male chimps eat the colobus in the trees, but also share a bit with the females and their young. Chimpanzees are the only great apes that hunt like us. Anthropologists believe man's ability to hunt in groups determined the course of human evolution. Our ancestors hunted together and shared the spoils with others when resources were scarce. The chimps of Mahale show off other more complex skills. They eat ants all year round, but must use a little ingenuity to do so. First, they locate the right tree. Then they fashion a twig into a tool to get at the ants. This takes thought, at least enough to show it's not just instinct or innate behavior. They know exactly what to do with it. They visualize the act of catching ants and mentally anticipate what will happen next. Most chimpanzees will fish for ants or termites on the ground, but Mahale chimps are one of the few that fish for carpenter ants in trees. The Mahale chimps also groom themselves in a most unusual way. Scientists describe it as hand-clasp grooming. The chimps face each other with one arm outstretched, clasping the hand of the other. They groom each other's armpits with their free hand. This hygienic habit is practiced by both adults and young. But chimps in the Gombe National Park, only 100 miles away, don't do this. Hand clasping in Mahale is a social custom which evolves slowly over time. One member of a group discovers something new and the others pick it up, a wide range of customs that differ from group to group and region to region in the land of the apes. Chimps have rare abilities. A study by a group of primatologists in the year 2000 recorded no less than 65 different types of cultural behavior unknown to neighboring groups. Today we face a paradox because chimps are more culturally diverse than earliest man. So who's the star? Him, of course. After observing the range of behavior in apes, scientists ask themselves the big question: if culture is not unique to man, could its origin be found in animals? In other words, is culture natural? When the rains come to Mahali, chimpanzees weaken and become sick with parasites. But they've found a remedy. These great apes swallow volumes of rough leaves from a number of different plants. The unchewed leaves are difficult to digest, are a burden to the stomach, and are rapidly passed through the digestive system, purging them of the worms. Professor Michael Huffman, a primatologist at the University of Kyoto in Japan, has studied this purging behavior firsthand.
Among socially living animals, individuals learn what plants in their environment are okay to ingest by watching their elders. This information is based on the group's accumulative experience and knowledge of the habitat and is passed on from one generation to the next. Humans have long looked to the habits of sick animals for novel pharmacologically active plants for the treatment of common ecologically relevant ailments. It should be no surprise then that in some instances, humans and animals living in the same environments sometimes use the same plants to treat the symptoms of similar diseases.
Professor Huffman noticed that local people in the park use the same medicinal plants as the chimps.
Traditional medicine are in some very fundamental ways the product of our shared evolutionary past with the rest of the animal kingdom.
The thread that links man to the animal world extends even into the realm of culture. The wet season in Mahali excites the chimpanzees. They charge around, screaming their heads off and shaking the trees. Scientists have described the ritual as a rain dance. Are they paying homage to the elements? Are we looking at how religion all began? The question is hotly debated among scientists. For Jane Goodall, the respected primatologist who spent a lifetime defending chimpanzees, such behavior proves their fascination with nature and all its mysteries. The rain dance evokes a kind of transcendence, something beyond the physical world. Culture forms part of the natural world. But which animal can teach us how to behave? You could be forgiven for ruling out baboons. They're aggressive and violent. Males fight over food and females. You could hardly imagine them living peacefully together, and yet that's precisely what some tribes do. Has peace really broken out? This tribe in Kenya's Masai Mara suffered a massive blow in the early 1980s when every dominant male died from food poisoning. Without the big bullies, violent tribal incidents dropped dramatically, and it stayed that way. The macho model was replaced by an oasis of peace and tolerance. Scientists aren't exactly sure how the new social model developed. But the females, who stay in the group while males migrate elsewhere, are certainly responsible. By encouraging intimacy with new members of the tribe and grooming males to keep them quiet, the females succeeded in keeping the peace. These baboons show how since time immemorial, seemingly ordinary behavior in the wild can be a product of culture. Nothing forces violent primates to stay that way, and that goes for us too. But who's to say cultural behavior ends with primates? If spiders, snakes, or cattle don't make the grade along with most animals that are ruled by their instincts, some creatures do qualify. They're the ones that are capable of learning in groups over a long life. One of the most established cultures in the natural world is the mating songs of humpback whales. Males spend hours, sometimes days, vocalizing across breeding grounds in wide tonal ranges and frequencies. A typical love song lasts 10 minutes or more and is repeated over and over again. Scientists believe they're the most complex sounds heard in the natural world. Whale songs differ from ocean to ocean. But two males, thousands of miles apart in the same ocean, like one from Hawaii and another from the Pacific coast of Mexico, can sing exactly the same tune. And both tunes will evolve from year to year in the same way. If the way whales transmit their songs remains a mystery, the ocean depths do seem to help sound waves travel across vast distances. The spread of their culture, synchronized across vast areas and through dispersed humpback populations, is matched only by man. Music circling the globe like a wind crossing continents. Other feathered prima donnas offer further key insights into what it takes for a culture to emerge from the animal kingdom. Crows in the archipelago of New Caledonia in the South Pacific have given a whole new dimension to the term bird brain. Naturally, for a small bird, their brains are tiny compared to mammals. But scientists have no hesitation in comparing the intellect of a crow to that of a great ape. Crows choose twigs according to their size and shape. They then put the tool to good use. The caterpillar stands no chance against the crow's technical expertise in using a carefully chosen tool for a deliberate purpose. It shows great dexterity with its beak. But its ability to invent a tool is not genetically programmed. It isn't an innate skill. Not all crows are so gifted. Even though their technical skills are handed down to future generations, their behavior depends on what kind of materials and prey are available in any given place. Conditions in the Austrian forests around Salzburg could not be more different than those of New Caledonia. Thomas Bugniar, a biologist at the Konrad Lorenz Research Station, studies the cognitive abilities of ravens here.
Ravens seem to have a quite complicated or sophisticated lifestyle. They sometimes cooperate with others, non-related individuals, and sometimes they fiercely compete with others. And those two factors obviously have a quite strong input on their cognitive abilities.
Finding food in the Austrian winter is always a challenge. Ravens stash their provisions in caches, secret larders where use-by dates are strictly observed. The ravens appear to understand something about time and space as they stock and hide their provisions. The winter cache system of survival demands imagination and a strong sense of perspective, qualities normally associated only with great apes. They hide their booty in the snow. Ravens also spy on each other to plunder when the time is right. Their behavior suggests they understand another's point of view and can act accordingly. They make sure the coast is clear before burying their food. The ravens under study in Austria are clearly animals of high intelligence, just what's needed for culture to blossom. To put them to the test, the team of scientists invented a problem. Food is tied to the end of a piece of string. The string, in turn, is attached to a branch. The ravens must work out how to get the food. They understand how to use one object, string, to get another, food. Solving this problem means they can make a mental image of how one thing interacts with another in space.
Ravens possess quite sophisticated cognitive skills, particularly in the direction that they can obviously understand something about the other's perspective. We also know that they are very good social learners, so obviously they meet the requirement for socially or culturally transmitting information.
Corvids, the family of birds that includes ravens, crows and magpies, adapt their diet to where they live. This flexibility works well in a consumer society. The botanical gardens in Paris attract several dozen crows because it's a good place for a free picnic. They stake out the best spots to keep an eye on activity below. So what's in it for a hungry crow? Just a few leftovers? It's hardly worth the effort and there's so much competition. These crows are after much bigger fare, a whole bag of French fries. They're champions of fast food scavenging, and they know exactly what to look for. A recognizable brand. Given the choice of an anonymous bag of fries and a colorful brand name, they'll take the latter. Their usually open-minded attitude towards food has become one-track minded, just like the junk food addicts sitting on park benches. The tricks of good scavenging are handed down to the next generation. Young crows learn to spot a good meal by its wrapper. But that's not the end of the story. The crows of Paris's botanical garden have developed a strong liking for self-service. They want for nothing, an abundance of choice in any number of plastic garbage bags around the park, and they're very picky. Crows are heavily influenced by human culture, especially the junk food culture, which has even spread to the gourmet capital of the world. What bird brain ideas will these crows come up with next? One thing is for sure, they make full use of the grey matter inside. Grey matter is something crows have in common with dolphins. Their high intellect makes them behave in quite different ways from group to group. They don't all play ball.
This match is in California and brings something new to basketball. When dolphins have the ball, they score every time. You can't make out the teams because none of them are wearing uniforms.
In an ever-changing environment, it takes time to develop new survival skills. The emphasis must be on passing on the skills as quickly as possible before those who know die with the secrets. But some secrets could be deadly to pass on. At the Texan oil terminal of Galveston, bottlenose dolphins have refined a particularly risky technique for traveling fast without effort. These bow wave acrobats hitch a ride with a 300,000-ton tanker. It's probably fun, but one slip and a young apprentice could die. Unlike racing in someone else's slipstream, these dolphins ride in front. Every leap in the air reduces friction and saves time. There's no room for error. Dolphins take full advantage of their environment, particularly one that's changed by man. Joining the oil rush to get ahead is par for the course. Dolphins inhabit every ocean and sea on the planet. Little wonder they're constantly reinventing the art of survival. When it comes to hunting, every group has its own technique. Bottlenose dolphins in the shallow coastal waters of Florida rely on a high degree of organization to hunt. They chase schools of fish to the surface and knock them flat with their tails. The key is to coordinate the attack so enough fish are parked near the surface to be neutralized. A few hundred miles to the north, the same species takes a completely different, though no less unorthodox approach. In the waterways of South Carolina, bottlenose dolphins practice beach feeding. They join forces to round up mullet and chase them to the bank. It's a somewhat messy picnic, but it's effective as long as the dolphins give chase together. The low tide helps as the dolphins repeat the process again and again. Mysteriously, they always beach on their right side. The dolphins have inhabited these waters for a long time. The knack doesn't come overnight. Far to the south, in the Gulf of Mexico, the same species hunts by sonar. Their prey is less in evidence even in the clear, warm waters. Razorfish hide in the sandy bottom, so the dolphins use a system of echolocation to find them. They emit ultrasonic clicks, amplified by pockets of fat under their brow. The sound waves bounce off objects and echo back. The dolphin's brain forms an image of the data and snuffs the prey out. Animals as intelligent and social as dolphins make full use of their skills by passing them on quickly to the next in line. Later generations refine the techniques for their own good, and so on down the line. Like humans, animals learn through contact with their own kind. But just how do they learn, and how similar is the process to ours? Young elephants take a long time reaching maturity. The role of their parents is crucial. The young spend years under the protection of adults in stable, organized groups. They're bound to be heavily influenced by their peers. Elephants belong to a group of animals defined by scientists as having multiple culture. They learn from each other, and every successive generation improves on the knowledge acquired. Learning what to eat and what not is a question of survival. The young only eat what their parents choose. So the mother instills likes and dislikes in her offspring. They memorize the best places to find food during shortages and the routes to take during migration. The matriarchs show the clan where to locate rare clearings rich in salt. This clan returns every year to the same salt grounds in Kenya's Aberdare National Park. Because they're so large, elephants have difficulty getting enough salt from their daily diet. Salt deficiencies in all mammals can lead to dehydration and sickness, even death. So these elephants find what they need in the ground. Learning how to bend to scratch the soil isn't easy. The The tradition of harvesting salt this way will be passed on so future generations have a better chance of survival. Animals are capable of great inventiveness, and their offspring pick this up through apprenticeship and not through genetic inheritance. But do they depend on learning as much as we do?
Fraulein Monika Peterback from Munich takes wonderful care of her adoptive son Kuni from Latin America. With such meticulous pampering, no wonder our little fellow has forgotten the laws of his native jungle and behaves in such a civilized fashion.
An orphanage for bonobo apes on the outskirts of Kinshasa, capital of the Democratic Republic of Congo, shows just how dependent they are on their mothers. Here, young bonobos have been rescued from poachers. The species is threatened and only survives in a few primary forests in the region. Like chimpanzees, they're our closest relative in the wild, sharing almost 99% of our genes. Bonobos are born into a matrilineal society where maternal ties are paramount. The young grow up slowly. Even after a year, they barely know how to walk, let alone climb trees. As orphans, they're totally dependent on their surrogate human mothers. To survive on their own, they must be taught their own culture. Before being returned to the wild, they must learn how to feed themselves or they'll die of hunger. Patiently, they're taught to recognize edible food and how to peel it. Climbing skills are developed so that at night they'll be able to seek protection in the trees. Great apes make great pupils. As they understand the intentions of their fellow creatures, they're able to copy their behavior. Professor Tetsuro Matsuzawa has studied their nut-cracking abilities at the Primate Research Institute of Kyoto University.
It's a little delicate and complex skills for the chimpanzees. So we are interested in how the skill and knowledge can be transmitted from one generation to the next. I think a sort of education by master apprenticeship is very important. The mother or adults of the community show the right model using stones properly to crack open nuts. The infant has a strong motivation, intrinsic motivation, to watch the adult's behavior and to make the copy of the behavior. The mother and the adults are very tolerant to the infant. Any kind of spontaneous attempt by infant, infants are allowed to steal the kernel, edible part from the mother. So everything, as far as the infants want to do, that is allowed.
Animals with such a strong gift for innovation and apprenticeship will certainly influence each other if they live together.
What a feat it is making a killer whale play ball. This ferocious toothed whale is the only carnivorous cetacean and is extremely voracious, but it doesn't scare its tamer in the slightest.
Mammals leap to new cultural heights at the Marineland Attraction Park in the south of France. Here, orcas, or killer whales as they're more commonly known, learn directly from their human handlers. Their talent, among other things for imitation, favors the development of a cultural know-how. Trainers communicate with the whales by getting them to reproduce simple gestures. It's a language of sorts. Because the whales are able to interpret abstract signs, the trainers can put them through their paces. The young whales in the team copy their mothers to earn a tasty reward at the end of the performance. Independent of their human handlers, the orcas develop their own showbiz culture. Rather less spectacular than acrobatics, they've also learned how to imbibe water and spit it out again. They've never been seen to do this in the wild. The downside is that performing orcas can never return to open sea. Turning somersaults and other tricks is their way of earning food. Keiko, otherwise known as Free Willy in the films, died after he was retired back into the wild. These killer whales also get easily bored out of the limelight once they're used to it. The species holds one last surprise. Up until now, we've seen the art of good apprenticeship is down to the student. A good student is a good copycat. But how far can one animal actively teach another? At the southern end of the Indian Ocean lies a group of windy islands called the Crozets. Here, adult killer whales teach the young how to survive. The classroom covers social behavior, hunting techniques, and even language skills. Adults spend long years teaching these skills. Every group can be identified by its calls. Vocalizations amount to a specific dialect, so members can communicate within a group. These whales are one of the great cold water predators. Of all the mammals, they hunt the widest range of prey: fish, penguins, birds, and even elephant seals. But the Crozet Islands are at the bottom of the world, where giant carnivores struggle to fill their bellies. Killer whales must use their imagination to survive. French marine ecologist Christophe Guinet has studied how adults submit the young to a steep and dangerous learning curve when it comes to hunting skills.
Ces orques ont mis au point une technique de chasse tout à fait particulière qui consiste.
These orcas have refined a hunting technique which is quite special, and it's designed to size young elephant seals when they're close to the shoreline.
Ne rentrent pas véritablement en mer, mais se déplacent.
Normally speaking, they're out of reach for orcas because they're still on land.
Des orques, puisqu'ils sont encore à terre.
What strikes us is the complete naivety of these seals. They seem oblivious to the dangers that the orcas represent. They move about the edge without ever associating it with risk.
The first challenge for the predator is to locate a young elephant seal by listening to movements on the shore. The killer whale then takes up position roughly 50 feet offshore, right opposite the target, and waits. With a burst of speed, it heads straight for the seal and the beach, while other whales lie in ambush.
What's important in learning this technique? Obviously, there's a risk associated with this form of hunting. The risk is to stay beached, to go too high and not be able to return to the sea. Orcas around the Crozet Islands die doing this, and it's always the young.
To minimize the risk, females teach their young to beach voluntarily. They push them to shore so they have a chance of learning how to get back. But the females must make sure that young apprentices don't get too close to the beach and die. They arch their bodies to spring back into deeper waters. The technique of intentional stranding takes up to 7 years for a killer whale to perfect.
Everything we've seen here in the Crozet Islands over several years clearly shows this behavior to be something which is transmitted through apprenticeship. It's not just done through imitation, but it's an active apprenticeship which will give the younger members of the group the skills to be able to hunt with this technique.
The case for animal culture couldn't be clearer. Adult whales fully understand what they teach their young and why. The young in turn will transmit these skills to the next generation. Killer whales put the final nail in the coffin of human cultural monopoly. So who's celebrating? In the beginning, males and females evolved so that they could come together, mate, and produce offspring. And so we believe that sex has one simple purpose: reproduction. But look closer. These are two females having sex, and these two have formed a homosexual pair bond. These octopuses are both male. And these male dolphins will probably be lifelong sexual partners. This kind of sexual behavior is not going to produce young. Yet, from seals to flies, to date, homosexual behavior has been documented in a few hundred species. Can something that seems to be widespread in nature be dismissed as irrelevant? Or do we need to think again? When we see one animal mounting another, most of us naturally assume that it's a male mounting a female. And scientists have been no different. Most Western scientists were raised on the story of Noah's Ark. To repopulate the world, there must be one male and one female of each species. The importance of reproduction was reinforced by Darwin, the father of evolutionary theory. His work led to the belief that everything an animal did was linked to improving its reproductive success. All the messages were clear. The animal kingdom must be heterosexual. It's not surprising that many early field zoologists who witnessed homosexual behavior chose to ignore it and concentrate on heterosexual sex. In 1892, one report that did document homosexual behavior in elephants carefully protected itself by stating, "Elephants are committing vices and crimes of sexuality prohibited by the rules of Christianity." But what is and what isn't homosexual behavior? One interpretation defines it in animals as genital contact or stimulation, courtship or pair bonding between individuals of the same sex. However, it's a strictly behavioral definition, regardless of motivation or consent. If that's what you see, that's what it is. But while some zoologists chose to ignore homosexual behavior, others were unaware of its existence. Male on top of female? Possibly. You might catch a female laying eggs, but you'd soon lose her in this crowd. It's impossible to tell these penguins apart. In 1922, 5 king penguins were captured and taken to Edinburgh Zoo. On the basis of their sexual behavior, they were named. After 7 years, the zoo finally accepted that something was seriously wrong and got their penguins sexed. Overnight, Andrew became Anne, while the happy couple Eric and Dora became the embarrassing Erica and Dora. The problematic Bertha and Caroline became the equally problematic Bertrand and Charles. So king penguins show some homosexual behavior, and so do the killer whales which share their remote Antarctic home. We know this because we can distinguish the males by their large dorsal fin. Yet as recently as 1980, a US government document removed all references to homosexual behavior from a report on killer whales. Since it was documented by scientists over 200 years ago, the study of homosexual behavior in wildlife has been the science which dare not speak its name. Even now, it's only just beginning to whisper. In the same bay frequented by the killer whales is a colony of elephant seals. In the Antarctic summer, they come together to mate and breed. But for more than 2/3 of the year, males and females lead separate lives out at sea. Separation of the sexes was one of the early theories used to explain homosexual behavior. If there were no females available, then males went for second best, another male. breeding season, the males are only interested in heterosexual sex. So much so that they will risk their lives fighting over females. The winner of the battle, the beachmaster, wins mating rights to all these females. The loser gets nothing. All he can do is take the equivalent of a cold shower. At the end of the breeding season, the beachmaster and his females head out to sea, but their pups stay behind, waiting to develop their protective blubber. They haven't been totally abandoned. The bachelor males are still around. Unfortunately for the pups, these males make terrible babysitters. For the entire season, they've been prevented from mating with the females. Now they take their frustration out on the pups. They're obviously not consenting, but they have no choice. This kind of behavior has been used to suggest that in animals, one partner in any homosexual situation is always non-consenting. But these bulls force themselves on both male and female pups, and in elephant seals, even adult heterosexual behavior can seem aggressive. If we studied only elephant seals, we might conclude that all homosexual behavior in animals is violent and non-consenting. We only have to travel deeper into the Antarctic ice to a colony of leopard seals to find that this is far from the truth. The male leopard seal is a ferocious hunter, and yet males form homosexual pairs which can only be described as gentle and affectionate. They are very tactile creatures, always nuzzling and nibbling each other. These two males, recognizable by the bump on their abdomen, appear to be consenting freely to courtship. After a bout of foreplay, they begin to dance. This behavior, known as pair rolling, can last for up to 15 minutes, and often climaxes with the males mounting each other. Leopard seals, like elephant seals, spend much of the year away from female company. Such separations are extremely common in mammals, but cannot account for all homosexual behavior. In Africa, for instance, male cobs spend most of their time in large bachelor herds. Although they have been extensively studied, homosexual behavior has never been reported in these male herds. But it is very common among females. During the breeding season, females visit the males in a special courtship arena. It's the female cob which chooses her male, not the other way round. And in order to check on his fitness, she keeps him on his toes. At the same time, in the same arena, remarkably similar behavior is taking place between two females. There are plenty of available males, so this behavior cannot be dismissed as opting for second best. The courtship is extremely elaborate. One female solicits another by whistling. If the second female is interested, the first uses a gesture known as foreleg kicking to delicately touch her genitals. Scientists are trained to link animal behavior to the goal of reproduction. One theory for this behavior is that it serves uniquely to excite the males. But the males frequently appear indifferent, and homosexual behavior is observed among females whether males are present or not. Another theory is that young females court others to gain sexual experience, but the evidence shows that adult females also mount each other. Their homosexual behavior does not stop female cobs from mating with the males. But having done so, they return to find other females again. The truth is that scientists have not found a convincing explanation for homosexual behavior in female cobs. This headbutting was once thought to be a female's way of refusing homosexual advances. But some scientists now think females may be competing with each other for the female of their choice. Heterosexual behavior is easily explained. It creates young. While homosexual behavior in female cobs remains a mystery, it's too important a part of a female's routine to be dismissed as a mere sideline to the real stuff of life. One scientist who chose to ignore homosexual behavior in his studies later came to regret it. From a hide high in the Canadian Rockies, Valerius Geest watched male mountain rams foreleg kicking, just like female cobs. He wrote, "To conceive of these magnificent beasts as queers was emotionally beyond me, but eventually I called a spade and admitted that rams lived in essentially a homosexual society." But whereas most female cobs also mate with males, many younger or lower-ranking mountain rams must wait till they climb the ranks before they experience heterosexual sex. Young American bison also stick to homosexual behavior, sometimes for up to 5 years. Typically, after a period of play fighting, they mount each other. Because older bulls prevent young bulls from mating with females, this behavior was interpreted as misdirected sexual frustration. But in several studies, the older bulls were removed, and although there were plenty of available females, same-sex mounts continued. Many of these early interpretations had one thing in common. Whether for practice or to excite the opposite sex, animals engaging in homosexual behavior had only one purpose: to improve their chances for future reproductive sex. Then, one group of apes emerged from their forest home in Central Africa and forced scientists to reconsider the purpose of any kind of sex. These two, gazing into each other's eyes, are male and female. But as primatologist Frans de Waal realized, bonobos will have sex with male or female partners, with young and old, while feeding or playing or carrying young. And they have sex often, all day long in fact.
Yeah, the sexual behavior of the bonobo, I think, is the most flexible sexual behavior that we know outside of the human species. I usually call bonobos pansexual, in the sense that I would never call them homosexual, because they have not an exclusive orientation at all to one sex or the other. So they use sex in all combinations of individuals, basically free for all.
Female bonobos only have young every 6 years or so, yet they have sex, whether or not they are in estrus, and even while they are pregnant or feeding young. Even the very young have sex, face to face. If any creatures are to break the long-held theory that all animal sex is somehow linked to reproduction, it is these bonobos. A favorite theory attempts to give all this sex a social purpose, linking it to dominance behavior, a high-ranking male putting a youngster in his place. But it's not the whole story for bonobos. Youngsters and low-ranking animals often mount their elders and betters, and as such, the sex often appears reciprocal. So why do bonobos spend so much time and energy having sex with so many different kinds of partner?
As far as choosing partners for sex, I think it is partly dictated by social bonds, by political strategies, and partly by tensions, because when tensions increase between bonobos, it is translated into sexual behavior. Food induces competition, and instead of fighting with each other, that's why we call them make love, not war. Apes, instead of fighting with each other, they have sex and then they share the food afterwards.
These make-love, not war apes often have sex face-to-face, a position once thought to be the sole preserve of humans. De Waal is as aware as any scientist of the dangers of making links between these highly sexual apes and humans. But there is one point he feels bonobos make very strongly.
Well, I think what the bonobo tells us is that the sexual life of close relatives of ours is extremely flexible and very rich. And so people who claim that the only function of sex can be reproduction are wrong on the bonobo and are probably very wrong on us, because sex can have multiple functions and can be very variable within a larger society.
And homosexual behavior?
It's marginalized only in certain cultures. It's almost as if, it was pushed in a corner, and as a result, people who have homosexual interests became exclusive homosexuals, whereas actually they might be bisexual, and the same is maybe true for many heterosexuals. So there's a sort of divide between the two that is maybe not naturally there, but culturally created by intolerance.
Certainly in bonobos and in other primate societies that have been studied, animals engaging in homosexual behavior do not seem to be marginalized. On the contrary, their behavior is just another part of everyday life. Deep in their forest home, bonobos prefer to make love, not war. But where the forest gives way to open savanna, lives a monkey which at first glance seems extremely aggressive. Male and female savanna baboons live side by side. There is plenty of sexual tension and competition, and with their razor-sharp teeth, males can easily inflict fatal injuries. Despite this aggression, as often as once an hour, a male meets up with another male, and instead of fighting, they partake in a homosexual greeting ritual. Some of these males will form stable partnerships or alliances, while other meetings end as casually as they began. A male looking for a partner appears to take a great risk exposing his private parts to another male. In behavior known as diddling, he puts the means to his reproductive success in the hands of another male. But the risk can be worth it, because while bonobo sex is promiscuous, these baboon partnerships can last several years. The significance of a close friend becomes clear when a rival appears. Two can face up to one. And though the more powerful rival tries to impose himself, an uneasy peace is maintained. While male baboons unite against hostile forces in partnerships that have been known to last up to 6 years, out in the open ocean, some males become partners for life. It has long been accepted that dolphins are playful, physical, affectionate creatures. They're also very sexual. These two male bottlenose may well have been together since they were young. When one partner rests, the other watches out for predators. They nurse each other when wounded and travel together in search of females. They will even share the same female, but the male-female bond is temporary. It is the male-male bond which lasts. Two male couples often meet up to form a foursome. If a dolphin dies, his widowed partner may search in vain for another single male. Sometimes the widower is welcomed by the male couple which were his part-time companions, and they form a threesome. But a widower has never been known to break an already existing male pair bond. In the Bahamas, bottlenose share the warm waters with spotted dolphins. Equally sensual and sexual, the spotted dolphins have a similar social setup. Denise Hertzing has been tracking these two communities for 16 years and has been able to study male-male and female-female couples. In dolphins, both males and females have what is known as a genital slit, and same-sex partners stimulate this slit with their beak or rostrum.
There's a behavior called beak genital propulsion, where they seem to push each other. It's probably just a form of stimulation along in the water with one dolphin's rostrum in the other dolphin's genital. Male-male and female-female.
So why are same-sex pair bonds so strong?
If same-sex behavior has the function of pleasure or social bonding, then what you've got is a mechanism, in addition to other mechanisms, that glue a society together.
Society in this case would seem to include more than just one species, as a bottlenose male appears to consent to homosexual behavior with a group of spotted dolphins. Sometimes the interactions between these two species are aggressive. Other times they cooperate, babysitting or joining forces against sharks. But why should there be homosexual behavior between two different species? Perhaps the same bonding which works within a group works across species which cooperate with each other. But as with so many questions in this area, research is in its infancy, and scientists are still searching for the answers. In lion society, bonds between females can also last for life. But lionesses cooperate for different reasons than dolphins. Sisters or half-sisters come together to help rear their young. Lionesses are extremely affectionate towards one another, but only occasionally do they engage in same-sex mounting. Some researchers argue that same-sex partners which come together to rear young should be considered homosexual, whether or not they actually have sex, in the same way that a male-female parenting arrangement would be considered heterosexual. These cubs have a playful family life, even though they rarely see their father. If this lion sisterhood tells us anything, it is that members of the same sex working together can make great parents. The traditional model of one male and one female bringing up a family together is the exception in the animal kingdom rather than the rule. But heterosexual parenting does occur and is most commonly found in birds. But even in birds, there are exceptions. Male greylag geese form male-male pair bonds, and when it's time to raise the young, they team up with a female to make a trio. These goslings have 3 parents, a male couple and a mother. On the same lake, some heterosexual couples are also found bringing up young. This fascinating social mix has allowed ornithologist Philippe Carouette to compare the parenting success of heterosexual couples versus the trios.
The advantage for a trio is quite obvious. You have to look at the advantage for each individual within that group. Each bird has in effect 3 birds to look after its chicks, and thus a better defense against predators. Their chicks are much safer. Also, since the female is with 2 males, she has a higher social rank and a better chance of survival. The female also has more time to take care of the chicks and then seek food for herself.
Besides keeping watch for predators and guarding their young, the 2 males defend their territory from other ganders, a role they seem to take extremely seriously. In this particular trio, one male is dominant over the other and spends more time away defending their territory.
When he returns, he performs a triumph ceremony, both to the female and to the other male. So the group is very important. This male is very particular, because although he's dominant over the whole group, he forgets neither the female nor the male. The connection between the individuals is very strong.
But in this situation, is one male playing the role of unpaid nanny, doing all the hard work for nothing, while the other is father of the chicks?
In the trio we're following, the female only seems to mate with the dominant male. If a trio forms with 2 males of the same rank, there will be occasional fights. But in any case, as far as I know, 2 males do not mount each other.
In these cases, both males mate with the female, and so both males will father some of the young. And the goslings do better with 3 parents. So by providing same-sex parents, nature seems to have found an arrangement where everyone benefits. At the end of the breeding season, when the business of rearing young is over, the female will break away from the happy threesome. In grey-lag geese, it is the male-male pair bonds that persist and remain stable from year to year. But if nature has rules for same-sex parenting arrangements, we haven't yet found them. Goslings seem to benefit from same-sex parents, but for roseate terns, the benefits are far from obvious. Off the coast of Massachusetts, Jeremy Hatch and his research team noticed something strange. In several tern nests, there were more eggs than one female could possibly lay.
Understanding who attends nests of this kind is very difficult because you cannot tell male and female apart by looking at them. What we do in order to establish which are males and which are females is take a small sample of blood from these individuals and identify males and females from the DNA in the blood.
Once these terns are sexed, the team colour marked them. They found that the nests with several eggs were attended by 2 females, like this pair. There are more females than males on Bird Island, and 1 in every 10 nests is incubated by a female pair. These terns are also endangered, so could there be a link? In the 70s, female couples were found in several other bird species. Scientists thought that man-made chemicals in the environment might cause females to pair together. So have these female couples been affected by pollution?
A favoured explanation has been that it might be due to some estrogenic chemical introduced into the environment, but we have no good evidence for this. And one of the strong bits of evidence against this is that 100 years ago there were numerous roseate terns attending nests with 3 or 4 eggs in them.
This chemical theory has now been discredited, but if female pairs are normal, how do they fertilize their eggs?
The explanation for how female-female pairs lay fertile eggs is presumably that they copulate with males somewhere else in the colony. Because we have trios that include males, but more often than not, the females that pair together do not have a male as part of that social group that's attending the nest.
So the male is essentially just a sperm donor, and one of the females must take on the traditional male role, hunting for food. But in roseate terns, even in heterosexual pairs, the tasks are pretty much equally shared. While one bird keeps the eggs warm, the other is supposed to be away finding food. There is some evidence, however, that females have a slight tendency to prefer housekeeping to hunting. In our pair, there is one female who always seems particularly reluctant to leave her warm bed. In the end, she takes the hint. Apart from occasional squabbles about whose turn it is to get out of bed, what makes these female couples different?
The females that are paired with other females do not differ very much from those paired with males. As far as we can tell, they don't differ in size, and perhaps more interesting, they don't differ in age. One of the simplest explanations would be that these are young birds, but they're not.
So they have much in common, but are they any better or worse at parenting?
The ways that they do differ are that they lay eggs later than most of the females paired with males. They lay rather smaller eggs, and they raise young less effectively.
In fact, these female pairs have set themselves a harder task. The normal clutch size is 2 eggs. A female in a same-sex couple has to try and sit on at least 4. Then the pair has to provide food for 4 chicks instead of 2. Varying family sizes makes the task of comparing different parenting methods more complicated. But then researchers wanting an easy life should avoid this controversial subject altogether. Take the case of the scientists who traveled 2 kilometers beneath the ocean's surface to study the little-known deep-sea octopus. Imagine their excitement when they began to film the first ever mating witnessed by humans between these elusive creatures. Then imagine their shock when they realized they were watching 2 males. And the surprises were far from over. These octopuses belong to 2 different species. The little white male is trying to mate with an octopus over 4 times his size. This finding was so extraordinary that when they returned to the surface, the scientists asked the expert, Janet Voigt, to check that they'd identified the octopuses correctly.
This preserved specimen, part of the Field Museum of Natural History collections, is a conspecific. That is the same species as the white guy that was attempting to copulate with the other octopus. Now, I said it was really easy to tell males from females. If you draw an imaginary line of symmetry in between the eyes of an octopus, there's symmetrical first arms, symmetrical second arms. He had a little damage there. But on the third arms, instead of being long, tapered with suckers carried to the end, in males, that third arm is a little shorter, and the tip has got a grasper-type organ.
This third arm is the male's reproductive organ. In these unique pictures, the smaller octopus is inserting his reproductive arm under the mantle of the larger octopus and attempting to copulate. But why? Some biologists have suggested that in these depths, octopuses encounter each other so rarely that they can't afford to pass up any chance of sex. But octopuses are known to be highly intelligent and sensitive creatures, easily able to tell individuals apart. And if the smaller male made a mistake, surely the larger male would realize this and back off. But as Janet Voigt notes,
he does not seem to be at any time perturbed that the other octopus is there.
And the scientists noted that as time went on, the ventilation rate of the smaller octopus increased, suggesting heightened arousal.
Clearly, it's not going to help him pass on his genes to the next generation. This male is simply near the peak of his life, and he's gotten abundant spermatophores produced over the course of that life, and he's had few or maybe no opportunities to copulate with a conspecific female.
It's impossible to say anything more about these fascinating creatures. We simply don't know enough about their lifestyle. But even insects, whose lifestyles have been thoroughly studied, leave scientists guessing about their homosexual behavior. This is one interpretation. The female parasitic wasp is ready to mate. Her irresistible perfume is designed to attract all available males. One male dances for all he's worth, hoping to gain her consent. Another female and another male. So far, everyone's playing by the rules. But this male is getting too carried away on the dance floor. Just as the female signals her admiration, another male rushes in and claims the reward. The original suitor arrives to collect his rightful prize. Flushed with success, he doesn't notice that he's trying to mate with a male. He doesn't realize because the second male, after contact with the female, now smells like her. The first male makes increasingly frenzied attempts to copulate and wastes precious time doing so. Happily sandwiched in the middle, the second male has one more trick to play. Once the female leaves, there's a danger her original suitor might follow her. He must be detained as long as possible. The second male drops his antennae coyly, just like a female. The ruse works. The hapless loser tries again. So could homosexual behavior occur simply because a rival has been duped? It may be true for this wasp, but it doesn't explain the variety of homosexual behavior in nature. And if this behavior persists, reappearing generation after generation, then it must, so the argument goes, have a genetic basis. To study this question, scientists turn to the fruit fly, the creature whose genetic structure they know better than any other. In the wild, about 8% of these flies show some homosexual behavior. In the laboratory, a team of researchers led by geneticist Jean-François Ferveur is attempting to find a genetic marker for this behavior.
When we observe the behavior of this small fly, we find that it's extremely sophisticated. Its tiny size may make it seem unimportant, but that's simply not so, because it has the same biological functions as any vertebrate or human being.
Sophisticated though this fly is, the team has managed to modify its behavior and artificially increase the rate of homosexual behavior to 90%.
To produce these generations of flies, we inject a fragment of DNA into an embryo, thus modifying the fly's genome. And so artificially we reproduce homosexual behavior.
The male with the red eyes has been genetically modified. He's trying to court the white-eyed, unmodified male. The red-eyed fly licks the other's genitals. But White Eyes scorns these advances and makes a show of cleaning himself up. Red Eyes doesn't seem to notice that he's been rejected and tries again. Ferveur believes that rather than actively seeking male company, this modified fly can no longer tell the difference between males and females. So instead of finding a genetic marker for homosexual behavior, the scientists may have simply removed the male's ability to discriminate. When several modified males are put together, something extraordinary happens. They all attempt to copulate with the male in front, creating a chain of dancing males. So does this artificially produced behavior suggest that there might be a gene for homosexuality in humans?
I think if you want to simplify or compare an organism such as a fly to humans, then the only comparison you can make is that a fly itself is already complicated enough. So in humans, to simplify certain behavior to one gene or even a series of genes, I think we're still a long way off.
As these Japanese macaques reveal, most behavior is too complex to be determined solely by genes. Learning surely has a part to play. "20 years ago, one female macaque began collecting stones and playing with them. Try as they might, scientists could think of no beneficial reason for this behavior, and yet more and more monkeys copied her. Today, most of the females in this colony play with stones. Young macaques come to recognize the troop's favorite food trees and sleeping spots from their parents. They learn to interact with the world around them in the same way. This is how the troop's unique culture is formed. Same-sex behavior forms part of that culture. Most females in this troop form intense pair bonds with other females. Paul Vasey's been studying this behavior for the past 6 years. His findings have thrown new light on the study of homosexual behavior.
When I first started studying female homosexual behavior in Japanese macaques, I was really interested in the whole question of why are the females doing this? Why are they investing so much time and energy into this behavior which doesn't seem to have any relationship to promoting reproduction? So the homosexual behavior in the female Japanese macaques represented something of a paradox when viewed from this particular perspective.
Vasey began by checking all the theories that have been put forward to explain homosexual behavior. In this colony, there seems to be no shortage of adult males looking for females. But even so, in science, everything has to be rigorously tested.
Some researchers have suggested that animals engage in homosexual behavior only in situations where they lack opposite-sex mates. What I found is that females will engage in homosexual behavior even when there are males present. And even when these males are sexually motivated, in other words, the males are soliciting them for sex, but the females still ignore the males and choose instead to engage in homosexual behavior.
So if males are sometimes present, could females be behaving in this intimate way in order to attract the male and turn him on? No, because Vasey shows that if they can, females prefer to avoid males when engaging in homosexual behavior. Typically, the pair switch back and forth between sex and grooming each other. So this behavior doesn't attract males. But what about the theory that gives sex a social function?
One of the theories that's been used to explain homosexual behavior in animals is that it's a dominance interaction. And typically this explanation suggests that dominant individuals mount subordinate ones as a way of expressing their dominance. So I looked at this idea in Japanese macaques, and what I found was that both partners participate in mounting, both partners participate in being mounted.
If both partners mount equally, could this behavior have something to do with an alliance, as suggested for baboons? For instance, when an aggressive male turns up, the females could support each other.
If natural selection had favored this behavior as an adaptation to form alliances, we would expect that females would prefer to engage in homosexual behavior with the most powerful allies possible. That's not the case. Females don't tend to target particular dominant females, which would be valuable allies.
Finally, what about parenting? Do these female pairs protect each other's young like lions and roseate terns? The answer appears to be no. At best, females ignore their partner's young, and often they are highly aggressive towards them. So what is Vacy's hypothesis to explain the macaque's homosexual behavior?
Most of my research has shown that there is no social function to the homosexual behavior. What my research does show is it seems that females are engaging in the behavior simply because it's sexually pleasurable.
If females do engage in homosexual activity for their own pleasure, where does that leave the males? The homosexual behavior in these females does not stop them engaging in heterosexual sex, and therefore does not appear to affect reproduction. They are bisexual, consorting briefly with a favored male before returning to partnership with their chosen female. This behavior holds for the animal kingdom generally. Most animals that engage in homosexual behavior are at some time also heterosexual. By suggesting that the main purpose of this behavior is simple pleasure, Vacy knows he's going out on a limb. Scientists, taught to look for beneficial reasons for behavior, are wary of suggesting that adult animals might simply be enjoying themselves. Link homosexual behavior and pleasure, and you have an explosive mix. To gain access to a certain female, males not only have to chase off other males, but also her female partner. He gets his female. If Vacy had suggested that heterosexual behavior is pleasurable, it wouldn't seem so controversial, because pleasure in this case has a reproductive goal. Vacy's work has put the sex back into homosexual behavior. And if pleasure, pure and simple, is important for macaques, could it be part of the story for other animals too? The answer is that until these ideas are tested by scientists, we just don't know. But what could be more pleasurable than a hot bath on a freezing cold day? These macaques live hundreds of miles further north. They have adapted to enjoy hot baths. Often, adaptation is a key to survival. But what if this adaptation is for pleasure? Might this also be true of sex? In primates, homosexual behavior is non-existent in some species, occasional in others, and, in these Japanese macaques, very common. Compare totally different species, and it seems that when it does occur, homosexual behavior in animals exists for many different reasons. Since Darwin's time, people have looked at the natural world in search of answers about themselves. But homosexual behavior in a few hundred species is a mere drop in the vast ocean of animal behavior. This is a science in its infancy, and each year, as more cases come to light, more questions are raised. Perhaps all that can be said is that homosexual behavior is as fascinating and diverse and complex as any other kind of behavior. And as such, it surely has to be worth studying, like any other form of natural behavior. For only when we can observe homosexual behavior in animals with open eyes and open minds can we even begin to ask the popular question, what does all this mean for us?